Yeah, hardly anybody in this country understands it. Why is it so popular?
Maybe because it's a bit catchy and the rhythm is to it. You see, it's there.
How many copies have you sold of the record around the world? Have you any idea?
Over 200,000, I think.
You ever hear a song so catchy it stops you mid-step? That was Sophia George in 1985 with Girly Girly, the reggae hit that blew up charts worldwide. One minute, she was a Jamaican school teacher. The next, she was topping the UK charts and rocking dance floors from Kingston to London. But then, she disappeared. No scandal, no dramatic press release, just gone. So, what really happened to Sophia George? In this video, we're looking at her unexpected rise to fame, why she stepped away from music, and what she's been doing since. Spoiler, it involves raising a future NFL star and trading the stage for real-life responsibilities. If you're into reggae history, music legends, or just wondering why your favorite 80s jam disappeared with the artist who sang it, you're in the right place. Let's talk about the rise, fade, and real story behind Sophia George. From teacher to star. Before she ever stepped into a studio, Sophia George wasn't chasing stardom or writing hooks for the radio. She wasn't out performing at parties or hustling on stage. Nope. Sophia George was in a classroom, signing and speaking to children who couldn't hear the very thing she'd one day be known for, her voice. Born in 1964 in the heart of Kingston, Jamaica, Sophia grew up in a world where music was always around, but not necessarily in the spotlight. Her early years weren't about bright lights and microphones. They were about discipline, family, and faith. She came from a home where church wasn't just a place to worship. It was the community's pulse. And in that church, Sophia's voice first turned heads. Folks knew she could sing, not in the showy look at me kind of way, but with a softness that stopped conversations and made you turn around. It was her friend from church who first told her, "This voice shouldn't stay here." That voice needed room to stretch, and apparently, it was about to get it, though Sophia wasn't even looking. At the time, Sophia's life was grounded in something far different than reggae beats and music videos. She had studied to become a teacher, specializing in helping students with hearing loss. That's right, before she was singing into microphones, she was communicating through hand signs and gentle patience. It takes a particular kind of person to teach kids who live in a world of silence. You need empathy, sharp instincts, and a calm kind of strength. Sophia had all of that. In her classroom, you would find her guiding students through lessons with care and dedication. This wasn't a side hustle. This wasn't something to pass the time. This was a career she built with intention. A space where she could make a difference in real people's lives. She didn't treat teaching like a backup plan. It was the plan. What's wild is that her musical future showed up kind of unannounced. The same friend who her singing had moved knew someone in the music business who was looking for a female vocalist. That connection opened a door Sophia hadn't even considered. She was hesitant, unsure if this was her path, but the friend was persistent. "Just go," she said. "What's the worst that could happen?" So, on the day of the audition, Sophia walked into a studio with no idea her life was about to change. She was greeted by a man who spoke with a mix of Jamaican rhythm and Chinese roots, Ronald Piggy Chung, a music producer with an ear for talent and a knack for knowing when he found it. He handed her a song, something cheeky, playful, and downright catchy, called Girly Girly. She sang a few bars, just enough to show him she wasn't bluffing. That's all it took. "Okay," he said, cutting her off mid-verse. "That's enough." What followed is now reggae history. But it's important to remember that before the fame, before the music festivals and chart-topping success, there was a teacher named Sophia George, a woman who poured her energy into helping children communicate in a world that didn't always accommodate them. A woman who used her voice to connect long before she ever sang a single note for the public. Her early life in Kingston gave her both structure and soul, the kind of upbringing where you learn to work hard and show up on time, the kind where Sunday was for God and family, and music was just a little side blessing you didn't take for granted. Those values shaped the artist she'd become, but even more so, they grounded the person she always was. Sophia didn't chase fame. She answered a knock at the door. And even after Girly Girly became a massive hit, she never forgot where she came from. That quiet strength she built as a teacher never left her. You could hear it in the way she handled interviews, with humility and clarity. You could see it in how she treated people, not like fans, but like neighbors. When you look back at her start, it's clear that her biggest asset wasn't just her voice, it was her character. And maybe that's what made her music land the way it did. It didn't feel like some polished machine trying to sell a product. It felt like a real woman, with real roots singing from a place of truth. Girly Girly sensation. Sophia George wasn't chasing a record deal when she showed up at that audition. She was a teacher with a solid career, a quiet life, and no real plans to be Jamaica's next big export. But then came that song. The moment she sang a few lines of Girly Girly for producer Ronald Piggy Chung, everything shifted. He stopped her mid-verse, not because it was bad, but because he already knew. This woman was about to make some serious noise. And oh, did she. Released in 1985, Girly Girly didn't just catch on, it exploded. In Jamaica, the single hit #1 and camped out there for 11 straight weeks. Let that sink in. That's nearly 3 months of being the most requested, most played, most everything track in the country. From taxis to corner shops to schoolyards, you couldn't escape it. And honestly, no one wanted to. But this catchy, cheeky hit wasn't just a local success story. It crossed borders like it had a passport and something to prove. In the UK, Girly Girly climbed all the way to #7. Over in the Netherlands, it reached #2. It cracked the top 5 in Argentina and went on to chart in Austria, Germany, and Switzerland. For a song with Jamaican roots and a playful jab at unfaithful men, it had some serious international legs. Now, let's pause for a second. Sophia wasn't trying to be a global pop star. She hadn't spent years grooming for fame. She didn't have a PR team or a 5-year plan. She had a voice, a studio opportunity, and a song written by Sanjay Davis that just happened to hit hard. That's what made it special. It felt real. It felt like it came from someone who lived life outside of the spotlight and still had something important to say. And what was she saying? Girly Girly was bold, funny, and unfiltered. A woman calling out a man who couldn't keep his act together. It was relatable, catchy, and a little rebellious, and people loved it. The song sparked an avalanche of answer records, which is basically Jamaica's version of musical replies. One of the most well-known was Flirty Flirty, a track that tried to clap back at Sophia's anthem from the male perspective. But none of the replies really touched the original's power. That was her moment. Now, Sophia could have faded after that. A lot of so-called one-hit wonders do. But here's the thing. She didn't stop at Girly Girly, she kept recording. Her 1986 album Fresh proved she wasn't a fluke. It featured Lazy Body, It Burned My Belly, and the duet Ain't No Meaning with reggae veteran Charlie Chaplin. All 3 songs became hits in Jamaica. If you were paying attention on the island, Sophia wasn't a one-song artist. She was a rising reggae queen with serious range. Fresh was a full project that showcased different sides of her style. Where Girly Girly was playful and biting, Lazy Body leaned into humor and real-life relationship struggles. It Burned Me Belly had that rootsy storytelling feel, and Ain't No Meaning gave fans something a little more introspective with a strong collaborator to match her energy. This wasn't a woman riding the wave of one catchy single. She was building a catalog. Her sound, pure Jamaican gold. It was dancehall, yes, but laced with traditional reggae and that unmistakable 80s vibe that made everything feel just a bit funkier. She wasn't trying to compete with American pop stars. She was doing her thing, authentic, grounded, and with just enough sass to keep it interesting. The music industry noticed. Girly Girly didn't just sit on record shelves, it made its way into film. The track was used as the theme song for the movie Going Overboard. And years later, it even got a surprising revival when American band Blondie covered it on their 2011 album Panic of Girls. Let that sink in. A reggae song from 1985, written by a Jamaican songwriter and performed by a soft-spoken teacher, was still echoing in pop culture decades later. Eventually, Girly Girly, the best of Sophia George, was released on Trojan Records, cementing her place in reggae history. That compilation reminded folks that Sophia was more than her most famous hit. She had layers, she had a voice, she had staying power in her own lane. Still, in the UK she's often labeled a one-hit wonder. That's the kind of oversimplified narrative that sticks when charts matter more than context. But in Jamaica, the story's different. There, she's remembered as an artist who gave voice to everyday frustrations, made people laugh, and brought serious vibes to the dancehall scene. Sophia George didn't chase fame, it knocked on her door. And when she answered, she brought a voice that was soft yet fierce, sweet but unafraid to speak truth. Her rise was unexpected, her success was deserved, and for a while, her sound ruled the airwaves in a way few reggae artists ever do. Family and love over fame. Sophia George was once everywhere. Her voice poured out of speakers from Kingston to London. Her song was the soundtrack to parties, lazy afternoons, and 1,000 teenage heartbreaks. But just as quickly as she rose to fame with Girly Girly, she slipped quietly out of the public eye. No farewell tour, no dramatic fall from grace, just gone. But if you thought she disappeared, you'd only be half right. She didn't fade, she shifted. And her reasons had nothing to do with charts and everything to do with love, loyalty, and choosing peace over pressure. At the center of that decision was a man named Ronald Chung. He wasn't just her manager, he was the person behind the curtain, making sure her career moved smoothly while the cameras focused on her. They met during the height of her success, when Sophia's music was turning heads and topping charts. And somewhere between scheduling gigs and approving track lists, they fell for each other. Ronald wasn't flashy, he didn't need the spotlight, and he didn't chase clout. What he offered Sophia was something rare in the music industry: trust. And when you're a woman navigating fame, headlines, and all the noise that comes with being in the public eye, having someone who's steady matters more than another award on the shelf. By the mid-90s, the couple made a decision that would change the direction of Sophia's life. They packed up and left Jamaica. First stop, Miami. The Magic City was buzzing with Caribbean influence, sun, culture, rhythm, but also just enough calm for someone looking to take a breath from the constant hustle. Sophia wasn't chasing stages anymore. She was looking for something quieter, something hers. And Miami gave her that, at least for a while. It was the place where she could go to the grocery store without someone humming her song under their breath. A city where she could just be Sophia, not Sophia George. That kind of anonymity might not sound like much, but for someone who lived a chunk of their life in front of a crowd, it's priceless. But the story didn't stop in Florida. Eventually, she and Ronald made another move, this time to the West Coast. They landed in Los Angeles, a city known more for making stars than letting them rest. But again, Sophia didn't go there to make a comeback. She went to build a life, a real one. In LA, she stepped fully out of the music machine. No tours, no press runs, just a home, a family, and the kind of freedom most artists rarely get after hitting it big. For Sophia, it wasn't about keeping her name in the headlines. It was about keeping her peace. This wasn't retirement out of defeat. It was a personal choice. She had climbed the mountain, seen the view, and decided she didn't need to stay at the top. Instead, she focused on the things that truly mattered to her: being a wife, a mother, and building a life outside the industry bubble. That life included raising a son who would eventually make headlines of his own. Patrick Chung, her child with Ronald, grew up to become a professional football player in the NFL. Talk about talent running in the family. While the spotlight shifted to the next generation, Sophia remained the same steady force, rooted, strong, and supportive. Her relationship with Ronald stayed at the center of that life. The same man who once guided her through studio sessions and tour schedules was now her partner in everyday life. Whether it was paying bills, cheering at their son's games, or just enjoying a quiet dinner, the two built something real and lasting. That's rare, especially for couples who started in the high-pressure world of showbiz. Sophia never chased fame again. She didn't release a comeback single, didn't jump on any reunion tours, and didn't need to explain her decision in interviews. If she missed performing, she kept that to herself. If she wanted to sing again, it was probably in her kitchen, not a stadium. And honestly, that might be the most beautiful part of her story. Because in an industry where people are constantly trying to stay relevant, Sophia George chose to just be present. She found success, then chose her sanity. She fell in love and built a life on that love. And instead of fighting to stay in the spotlight, she turned it off and focused on the people who mattered most. Her move from Kingston to Miami, then to Los Angeles, wasn't a retreat, it was a shift. From fame to family, from fans to faith in her own path, from the sound of applause to the sound of her own peace. mother of a champion. When people talk about Patrick Chung, they usually focus on the hits, the ones he delivered on the field as a hard-hitting safety for the New England Patriots, a 3-time Super Bowl champion, a fearless tackler, a locker room leader. But before all that, before the roar of NFL crowds and the championship rings, Patrick was just a kid swimming laps in a pool while his mother, Sophia George, stood poolside wondering where this journey would take them. That's right. The voice behind the reggae classic Girly Girly also happens to be the woman who raised one of the NFL's most respected defenders. While Sophia's music career lit up charts in the 80s, her legacy didn't stop there. Her biggest masterpiece might have been raising Patrick, a quiet, determined, and deeply creative kid who would grow up to hit harder than a bass drop in one of his mom's old tracks. Patrick was born on August 19, 1987, in Jamaica. From the start, it was clear he wasn't built to sit still. He played soccer, he practiced karate, he swam. In fact, for a while, everyone in the family thought swimming would be his path. He glided through the water with such ease that a neighbor used to stand outside his apartment just to watch him swim. One day, Sophia asked why. "He has such beautiful strokes," the man told her. "They are perfect." And they were. But Patrick, being Patrick, wasn't interested in staying on the same track for long. By the time he reached high school in California, he had his sights on something else: football. It wasn't about fame or glory. It was the energy of it, the contact, the speed, the way it felt to run free and slam into someone without hesitation. The sport called to something primal in him. And though he wasn't the biggest or strongest, he knew one thing for sure: he could hit, and he could take a hit. He wasn't a standout at first. Rancho Cucamonga High had a lineup full of bigger names. When scouts showed up, coaches handed them film of the usual suspects. But while a University of Oregon coach was watching someone else's highlights, he saw a skinny player come flying across the screen, crashing into blockers like a heat-seeking missile. "Nobody does this in high school," the coach said. That clip earned Patrick a second look, and eventually a spot with the Oregon Ducks. He was only 16 when he arrived in Eugene. Most schools might have redshirted him for 2 years, given his age and size. But Patrick's relentlessness changed that. His coaches decided he only needed 1 year off. After that, he was too valuable to sit. His defensive back coach, John Neal, described him as one of the most driven players he'd ever coached. It wasn't just in games, it was in practice too. When things got quiet, Patrick would drop down and do 20 push-ups. No one asked, he just did it. Eventually, the rest of the team started doing it too. It became a tradition. One small act of self-discipline turned into a culture shift. Some say that moment laid the foundation for Oregon's transformation into a college football powerhouse. And Sophia and Ronald were there for all of it. The drives from Southern California to Oregon were long, sometimes 14 hours, but they never missed a game if they could help it. They didn't cheer from VIP boxes. They cheered like regular parents, from the stands, bundled up, watching their son chase down quarterbacks and ball carriers like a man possessed. When Patrick entered the NFL and joined the Patriots, his reputation grew fast. He played with grit, focus, and a controlled fury. On the field, he was a heat-seeking missile with a helmet. Off the field, though, a whole different person. He liked art. He drew constantly. He wrote music. He recorded songs quietly at home. He talked about life and meaning, even had tattoos that read, "We must not fear death," and, "But fear the unlived life." He was thoughtful, soft-spoken, and surprisingly gentle for a guy whose job was to knock grown men to the ground. "He's the kind of guy you can look at under a microscope," said teammate Josh Barrett. "He does everything right." And Sophia? She saw both sides, the fearless athlete and the sweet son. "He goes to a different zone when he's out there," she said. "It's like he's saying, 'I won't let anyone come in my house.' And then away from it, he's peaceful. It's turned on and turned off." Sophia knows a thing or two about living dual lives. She once balanced fame with teaching, music with motherhood. And now, as she reflects on her life, she says she misses singing sometimes. She still gets calls from doctors, still deals with the day-to-day grind, but when she thinks back to little Patrick sitting on the floor in Jamaica, trying to sing her song, "It Burned My Belly," she smiles. He couldn't say the words right and ended up singing "Done Dealy." She laughs, sings a line over the phone to demonstrate. "Now don't judge my singing," she says, even though her voice still carries that warm melodic tone that once topped the charts. Sophia George Chung didn't just make one hit song. She raised a son who became a symbol of dedication and heart in one of the toughest sports on the planet. And she did it with grace, wisdom, and a quiet strength that echoes in everything Patrick does. Missed stage lights. Sophia George didn't just make a splash, she made waves. With a voice that once rang out from every corner of Jamaica and echoed through UK airwaves thanks to her breakout track, Girly Girly, she built a name that became synonymous with reggae sass and style. But fast forward to today, and the rhythm has changed. The spotlight has dimmed, the stages are quiet, and Sophia George Chung is living a very different kind of life, one that's far away from the whirlwind of microphones and music charts. So, what exactly is Sophia up to now? These days, you won't find her headlining festivals or promoting new records. In fact, she's taken a complete step back from the music world. After nearly 2 decades in the business, starting from her 1985 breakout through the early 2000s, Sophia quietly pressed pause on her musical journey. There haven't been any new albums, singles, or even surprise comeback tours. And that's not because she couldn't keep going. It's because she chose something else. A life centered on home, health, and the people she loves most. Sophia now resides in Los Angeles, far from the studio booths of Kingston or the concert halls of London. The palm trees and freeways of Southern California are where she's built her second act, not as an entertainer, but as a pillar in her family. The woman who once took the world by storm with clever lyrics and a honey-smooth voice is now focused on the real work, being present for the day-to-day moments that actually matter. The decision to walk away from the music industry wasn't some dramatic announcement or public declaration. There were no final concerts, farewell interviews, or teary-eyed TV appearances. Sophia simply faded out of the public eye, leaving behind a legacy of catchy hits and a quiet mystery about what came next. But to her, there was no mystery. She knew exactly where she was headed, and it wasn't back on stage. Sophia's life today is about presence, not performance. While many former stars chase the next big thing or try to recapture their heyday, Sophia is focused on something much more grounded, making sure her family is supported and her home life runs smoothly. From her role as a wife to Ronald Chung, her longtime partner and former manager, to her steady support of their son Patrick Chung, yes, the same Patrick who carved out a legendary career in the NFL, Sophia is the glue that keeps it all together. Living in Los Angeles, a city known for producing fame and chewing it up, Sophia isn't looking to reignite her celebrity. She's just trying to live well. She hasn't released new music in over 2 decades, nor has she stepped onto a stage to perform. It's clear that she's found peace in the quiet. And while some fans might be holding out hope for a surprise performance or a nostalgic reunion album, Sophia seems content to let her past accomplishments speak for themselves. And honestly, that's kind of refreshing. So many artists get caught in the trap of what's next. They feel pressured to stay relevant, to keep putting out content, to tour endlessly in hopes of staying on the radar. But Sophia took a different route. She didn't let the industry burn her out. Instead, she stepped away before it could. And in doing so, she preserved not just her legacy, but her well-being. These days, Sophia's name pops up only occasionally, mostly in retrospective pieces, nostalgic music blogs, or when someone discovers Girly Girly for the first time and falls down a reggae rabbit hole. Sometimes you will see her mentioned in connection to her son, especially during major NFL events or interviews highlighting Patrick's upbringing. But Sophia herself, she's not seeking the limelight, she's content where she is. In an era where everyone is constantly online, always promoting, always pushing, Sophia George Chung stands out by doing the exact opposite. She isn't flooding social media with updates. She isn't teasing new projects or dropping surprise singles. She's simply living her life. And in doing that, she's reminding the world that sometimes stepping back isn't about quitting. It's about choosing peace over pressure. Of course, for longtime fans, there's always a hope that she might one day return to music, even in a small way. A re-recording, a live appearance, maybe even mentoring the next generation of reggae artists. But if she never does, she's still left an undeniable mark. Her music lives on in playlists, in nostalgic dance nights, and in the memory of anyone who's ever belted out Girly Girly at full volume. What's more, Sophia's story isn't just about one big hit. It's about knowing when to let go, about recognizing that there's life beyond fame, about choosing a slower rhythm after years of fast beats and flashing lights. So, if you're wondering where Sophia George is now, the answer is simple. She's home. Not in a metaphorical sense, but literally home in Los Angeles, where she's raising her voice not through music, but through love, support, and the everyday power of just showing up for the people who matter. Sophia may not be on tour, but make no mistake, she's still the star of her own story. And in many ways, it's the most meaningful chapter yet. They say lightning doesn't strike twice, but Sophia George proved that sometimes one strike is all you need to leave a lasting mark. From a Jamaican schoolteacher with a voice that could brighten the gloomiest day, she shot to global fame with Girly Girly, a song that still gets people dancing decades later. Her rise was swift, unexpected, and undeniably unforgettable. But Sophia's story isn't just about the spotlight. After topping charts and charming audiences worldwide, she made a quiet choice to step away from the stage. Instead of chasing fame, she chose family, love, and the kind of everyday moments that don't make headlines but matter most. Today, she lives in Los Angeles, focused on supporting her loved ones, especially her son Patrick Chung, who carried the family name into the NFL spotlight. Sophia George's journey reminds us that success isn't always about staying in the limelight. Sometimes, it's about knowing when to turn it off and find peace. Whether you know her from the catchy reggae beat or as the mom of a sports star, her legacy is about heart, strength, and choosing your own path. So, next time Girly Girly comes on, remember the woman behind the song, not just the voice that made it famous, but the person who chose life beyond the music. That's a story worth celebrating. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more stories like this.